before we get going here, just a reminder. All the faces that I'm seeing, I think, are people who have been here, so you've heard the drill before. But how group coaching is going to go is we're going to open up with wins. So what good is happening, what's going on in your business that we want to celebrate, or it may even be a personal win. We love to hear it. And after that, we're going to go into the open Q&A, which is a great time to ask questions about um, anything. You've got all of the coaches here, you've got other contractors here, and so it's such a powerful hour to get those questions answered. But let's go ahead and jump right into it today, guys. What wins are happening? What good is going on? What do we conquer this week? Um, I'd love for you to unmute, type in the chat, whatever you need to do. Would love to hear what good is going on. I see a few more people coming on here. No wins. Are we just surviving up to Christmas, guys? Is that what we're feeling? We're just trying to make it through the holidays.
Well, I've got a win. To me, it's a win. We're getting ready to hire another employee, kind of start with kind of a swamper helper type employee. So we're busy enough going through Christmas and the first of the year that we actually need to hire this person on. And then I think Nicole and I are going to have to talk about another hire after the first of the year, once make sure everything's going to continue going strong forward. But yeah, we're getting ready to hire another employee. So that's kind of a win for us.
That's a huge win.
Yeah, I guess I'll just pile on with that and say the win is, it's the holiday season, it's winter, and we're just as busy as we were in the middle of the summer. So that's a win.
Huge win. Everybody's always panicked going into the winter months. So love to see it. What other good's going on? Also, tell us, Lance, what's happening?
So, never really had like a huge emphasis on like reviews, Google reviews, things like that. Just, I don't know, never saw it as a big deal, but met this really great client previously this week, a couple days ago, and he just couldn't stop talking about how highly we came recommended, and all the research he did and reviews, and he was just like, I'm sold. If you can get me a quote by Friday, he was like, job's yours. I'm sold already in your company. So that was a huge win. I thought that was really cool.
That is really cool, Lance. I love to hear, and that's what we tell people. So I love hearing, proof of that is like, hey, the more reviews that you get, the more people are going to be sold on you by the time they even go to call you. Like, you're already built so much credibility, especially compared to your competitors. You've already built so much value. And if you are the highest rated and most reviewed, people have this assumption that you are a premium service, which means it's a lot easier to charge a premium price. And so I love to hear that, Lance, and the more of that you're going to see as you continue to be so diligent with those reviews. What other wins do we have going on today, guys? Good things that are happening.
I guess I'll jump in here. Hey, everybody. I don't think I've talked yet on this group, but I'm Jordan with Emerald Isle Construction. Got a performance win, I guess, is a good way of putting it. But my kids slept through the whole night. So my performance already today has gone up 100%. I got 8 hours of sleep. So.
I see a lot of nods and a lot of smiles, Jordan. I think you have a lot of people here who are either currently where you are with that or have been where you are and can testify to the struggle. Appreciate you being here, Jordan. And I hope today continues to be a productive one for you. What other good news do we have today?
Well, you talk about those kind of wins. I could tell you, my daughter's coming home from college today.
That is super exciting. Does she get to be home for Christmas, like a good couple weeks? That'll be nice.
Yeah, she'll be home until mid-January, actually. And the other daughter's coming home from college tomorrow. So
that's awesome.
Everybody in the house again.
Yeah. It'll be good. It'll be busy, I'm sure. Hopefully
Yeah.
productive, but it might be a little less. That's
Yeah,
okay.
we'll see.
The holidays are a time for
I
it.
look forward to spending time with them. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, just kind of speaking of the holidays, guys, we will have group coaching next week like normal. That's on the 19th. We'll be totally like normal that week. The 26th, which is the day after Christmas, is a Thursday. We will not have group coaching then, but we will on the 19th and we will on the 2nd. So it's just that Thursday after Christmas that we won't, but you can count on group coaching happening on the other Thursdays. Okay, well, guys, we've got 32 people in here. Any other wins? Jordan.
Yeah.
Got a win?
So we're still working on getting our like sales process nailed down, and estimating process and all that. But in our last 30-day rolling average, we broke, or not, like our last 30 days of business, we broke $100,000. And that was the first, like we've gotten close a couple times, like we've gotten up to like upper 90s, but this is the first we added a zero. So that was nice.
That is huge,
Let's go.
Jordan. Yes. And I think this time of year is typically not super busy for you guys. Like historically, we're not seeing that.
Yeah. So like, and we added a second crew. So like over the summer, we got really close, but it was with one less crew. So we've added an extra crew. So it's like that number should be going up, you know? So, but I also, I was kind of worried about one of the guys. He's just, he's like really smart, but he just kind of goes slow. And I worked with him on Monday of this week, just him and I together.
Yeah.
And it turns out that like, it's not him. It's just me being crazy and like thinking that things should take less time. Like he's actually a good asset. And like, sometimes in your head, you bid out or you send guys out on a job and you're like, that should only take this long. And it ends up taking them longer. And like, after working with him, like one-on-one, I realized like, no, this is a good guy. Like he needs to be a part of the team. And so that was a win too. Like, cause I was wondering if I
Jordan,
should go.
yes.
And
That
so,
is a win and it's a lesson. And so I love both of those because not only is it a win that, hey, I found a good employee, he's really solid, we're going to be able to make it work, but it's also good learning for everybody where 99% of the time, your employees are not going to be able to produce what you produce as a business owner. There is a difference. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have standards and doesn't mean that we're going to tolerate somebody who takes way longer than anybody should. But it's always good to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room on those estimates. You know, how long you think it should take is probably not realistic to how long it is going to take or how long it's going to take them. And I love what Jordan did where he wasn't sure about this guy. We've been talking about him for a couple of weeks on if he's going to work out. So he just spent a couple of days with him. And now he has a good game plan on how to handle it. And so great win and great learning on that one. And congratulations on the revenue, Jordan. I can't wait to continue to have these record-breaking months. It's huge. Anything else today, guys? Jordan Berry, I do see there. We do have a lot of Jordans right now. I also, just on my own, have 4 Jasons. And so poor Jordan over here gets called Jason half the time because I have so many Jasons. So a lot of J's. A lot of J's. Okay. All right, guys. Well, let's get into the Q&A.
Hey, real quick,
Jason.
before we jump in, I want to, Jordan Russell, I feel like you have, since you've started, just have really gone after it in our program. And you're here every week. You ask good questions. You give other people really good feedback. You show up. You make your meetings. And that's the exact kind of, in our onboarding call that I do with everybody, something I talk about is like your degree of results is largely dependent upon your degree of commitment. And this is a perfect example of that in action. As someone who has stayed really committed, and typically a month that is somewhat slow, they broke a record. And so really good job, man. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
100% agree. All right, Jason Taylor, question.
Yeah,
Win,
so
concern, what's going on?
So going into this next year, I've been trying to think of a way to like to do a commission for like the people that do our estimating. And I was just wondering if anyone else out there has any type of structure that they're doing. Do they pay off of the profits of the job, or does anyone else out there do any type of kind of a bonus or commission or something like that for the, like, for example, for the estimators?
This could also probably apply to if anyone out there has commission for salespeople on larger construction type jobs. What might that look like too? I think that would be, if anyone has any experience there, I think that would be relevant for Jason.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just.
I have a question. What is industry standard for a percentage of sales commission in your general conditions? Like, what would you recommend?
Are you asking me? Or
I'm asking Robert or Nicole, whoever wants to respond.
Yeah, so I think let's kind of take two questions at once here. I remember, I think it was Rock and J Construction who brought this up a few weeks ago, or a similar question. Yeah, James, do you remember when you were asking about this?
Yeah, we threw around a couple. I'm from the roofing side mostly, and all that was all percentage of profit. But now that we're doing more remodels and additions and stuff, I think working with Bryce, and after that group call, I think we've settled on 7% of the, and he's 100% commission. So doing 7% of the gross, and then I'm working on setting him up on a quarterly sales incentives, which I haven't quite figured out what that's going to be just yet. But so that's what we landed on. Yeah,
so that's great. So when we were talking to James about this, you know, when you're asking questions like industry standard, and Jason, you didn't say industry standard, but I almost hear a similar type of question in your question. Hey guys, what do I do here? You know, what do I give these guys? Industry standards can be helpful, but they can also be kind of stupid, because if you're like basing things on an industry standard and you're losing profits, then drop the industry standard. You know what I mean? And so what I'm getting at is, the first thing here is that you want to base this on your business, right? And the way that you want to do that is you want to determine first, what average net profit do I want to receive as a percentage, not a dollar amount, as a percentage. What average net profit do I want to make on every single job, right? Let's say that's 20%. Well, if you want to make a 20% net profit, the next thing that you can do is you can look at your profit and loss statement. Your coach can help you do this too. And so long as it's accurate, you can then begin to see what percentages you're spent, or for your expenses, what percentages are going out the door in your cost of goods sold and overhead, right? The next thing that you want to do, so let's say that you want to make a 20% profit, right? You have, you know, let's say a 65% cost of goods sold, 10% overhead expense, right? So you want to figure out what those two numbers are. What's your percentage for your expenses and cost of goods sold, and what's your percentage for your overhead? Well, then you can kind of see what room you have to offer someone else who's involved in some sort of sales like role, right? I still consider estimating, like if someone's estimating, to me, that's still someone's involved in a role on the sales side, right? Their role is, we haven't closed the deal, but they're serving a function which will help us do so, right? So that's kind of like a sales role in my head. That will begin to show you what opportunity, just what kind of profitability are you wanting to maintain? What are you spending right now? And then that will show you the room that you have to give someone. Now, a few things to consider in this, right? Maybe you're looking at your P&L and you're like, Robert, I'm not even hitting the profit margin that I want to hit. And I still need to figure out how to give a sales guy, a commission. What do I do there? Well, then it becomes a matter of like trade-off decisions, right? So there's this element to where maybe your net profit percentage is a little bit lower than the 20% example we're using. But maybe by having someone fulfill this role, it gives you a lot of your time back so that you can then win new opportunities, which will bring more to your top line, which will bring more to your profitability. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
If you close 10 deals, for example, at an 18% net profit versus 4 deals at a 20%, you're making more money, even though the net profit's a little bit lower. And so to give you guys specific industry standards, right? Generally, I see folks share, like if it's like a larger construction project, right? We're talking, maybe 20, 25,000 plus. I see people share anywhere from 1% to 3% of top line revenue. Whenever you're creating a commission, unless someone is in a partner or close to a partner-like role, like unless they're overseeing a department of your business, maybe they're in not an official equity partner position, but maybe you kind of view them as a partner. I would make sure to really determine those percentages beforehand, because if you have a partner, then you can maybe share a little bit more of the net profits in your actual financials. I wouldn't recommend making things like a commission based on profit if someone's not in a higher level position, because then you're having to open your books up and people might be questioning your profits and what you run as expenses. And, well, hey, you run these sorts of things as expenses and that's affecting my commissions. You don't want to get into that, right? So just be aware of that if you're basing it off profit. But what I would do is I would say, hey, what profit am I making right now? What am I spending and my cost of goods sold as a percentage and my overhead? That will show you the wiggle room that you may have. And then it's, what is this position going to add to me, right? Am I going to be buying my time back through this position? Well, maybe we have some more wiggle room. Maybe we're willing to go down on the profits we make to pay this person so that you have more of your time back. And then the last thing is make sure it makes sense. So if you're like running through the numbers here and you're wanting to project what someone can make in a year in a position like this. So maybe you take the last quarter, the average amount of jobs you do. Well, this person's involved in that amount of jobs. They can be making this kind of money based upon your commission structure. So the next thing you want to do is, does that money actually interest someone, right? Does that money actually make sense? And so maybe that wasn't helpful. That was a lot of information. The biggest thing that I'm saying is that look at your current financials and make decisions like that based upon your current financial condition. And the second thing you want to consider is make decisions like that based upon what that position is going to bring to you as a business owner. What are you buying with that position? Are you buying more time? Are you buying more freedom? Are you buying maybe someone who can estimate better?
Robert, I just have a quick question to that point.
Yeah.
What if I'm in a rebuild mode right now and I don't have enough data to really make a decision on that? what would you, but I need that position filled to increase the sales in the company. What would you do in that instance for something like that?
Do you know roundabouts your even gross profit on your jobs right now? Like not even for the entire year, but maybe some of your more recent jobs?
Yes. The gross profit on
And they could be like roundabout.
I would say I'm at right around 15%.
Okay, 50% gross. So for you, I would maybe get into a discussion of actually increasing your prices. And then rewarding this person based upon the increase. We really like to see people operating at a 30% gross profit. So that means after you pay your subs, after you pay your payroll, after you pay for materials, you got 30% of your income left over. That's what we like to see people at. And that's very normal. So if you're operating at a 15% gross profit, and do you guys wildly overspend on your jobs, like on labor and things like that? You do?
Yeah, I have in the past. Yeah.
Is that what has caused that overspend?
Subs just being high priced and not delivering, bad trades essentially in the past.
Okay, so has it been like an efficiency thing?
Efficiency thing, and yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that, you know, you don't want to increase your price based upon a lack of efficiency, right? Because then you're asking people to pay more for like an inferior service, kind of. So I'd first maybe take a look at your stub so you can get some more gross profit in the door.
And if you need a change order policy or callback policy, David, those are two areas that we typically see if jobs are, like if we are spending a lot more time on the job than we originally, or we're having to redo work or stuff like that. Those two policies tend to nip that in the butt and kind of set expectations with both your subs, your employees, and the clients. And so talk to your coach, we can get that going as well. That'd be part of a working agreement.
Okay.
And then Robert, I was going to put it in the chat, but I think it would be good just in general to go over what average percentages we see for like cost of goods sold, overhead, profit. You know, what do we what would be healthy?
Yeah. So let's share the consulting with the P&L doc. This is I want to show you guys a document that we've used for years, kind of like a tried and true Redmond growth system.
Travis just put it in the chat, Robert.
Okay, awesome. So this here is a document we created, which really break down like where your percentages should be, like for a construction business in your different areas of your profit and loss statement. And then it even includes under each category or under each section of your P&L, what you can do to positively impact that specific section, right? So whenever you're dealing with a profit and loss statement, does everyone know what that is, by the way? Right? There's no kind of dumb questions in here. We're here to learn. Does everyone know does anyone not know what a profit and loss statement is? Okay. So profit and loss statement basically is just a summary of your business's performance. It's, hey, what's all the money that came in? What's all the money that came out? And what money do we have left over? That's all it is, right? So you have 5 different sections of this profit and loss statement. The first section is your income, right? That's 100% of your revenue, right? It's your top line sales. It's your top line revenue. It's all the cash, all the money that came in the door, right? I really encourage people to look at their P&L on a cash basis of accounting, not an accrual basis. An accrual basis, have you guys heard of that difference between cash and accrual accounting? Accrual will show you your total sales, but it won't show you your total cash collected. And I found for purposes like this, it can sometimes be misleading, right? In construction, collections, it's a huge part of our businesses. And so if you're looking at accrual and you're like, well, hey, we made a ton of money, but if you haven't collected on it, then you haven't really made that money, right? So I encourage you to look at it at a cash basis. Income is 100% of sales. The second section is your cost of goods sold, right? Your variable expenses. So cost of goods sold is a fancy accounting kind of title to describe expenses that your businesses incurs simply because you sold something. That's all a cost of goods sold is. You sell a widget, you have to buy a thing to make a widget, the thing you have to buy to make the widget, you have to pay someone to make the widget, all that kind of stuff. It's called cost of goods sold. They're expenses that your business would not have unless you sold something. Expenses specifically related to the work that you do. So the most common forms of these expenses are your materials, right? So you're only buying materials because you sold something. Your labor, you're only hiring people because you sold something. You only have people working because you sold something. And then it can also be your subs, maybe equipment, stuff like that, right? So typically we want to see a cost of goods sold no higher than 70%. So if more than 70% of the money that you make is going towards your cost of goods sold, there's an opportunity for you there. You know, for David, his opportunity was the efficiency. You know, maybe it's higher pricing as well. You know, so if it's higher than 70%, if you're looking at your P&L and you're like, this is 80%, then that's too high, right? We want to figure out how to get that down. Next section is your gross profit, right? So your gross profit is not your bottom line. This is not the money that you as a business owner keeps at the end of the day. This is the money that's left over after you pay your cost of goods sold. It's the money left over after you pay for your materials, after you pay for your labor, after you pay subs, equipment, all that. That's a gross profit. We want this to at least be 30%. That's what I just shared with David. Ideally 40%. I have here, gross profit does not mean that your business made this much. It means that you made this much after the job, but you still have operating expenses you have to pay for, right? So what's operating expenses? Well, it's rent, it's advertising, it's your fee with Redmond Growth, insurance, you know, licenses, vehicle costs, anything that you have to pay for whether or not you sold something, right? You can think of these, another way of thinking of this is your fixed costs. Your fixed costs that stay the same month over month, regardless of what you sell, right? Maybe it's a loan payment. That's another example. Okay, you really want your operating expenses to be 10 to 20%. Part of the reason why I love construction and service businesses is because of where most of you are tuning in today. Most of you are tuning in from like a home office, you know, maybe a garage, maybe you're in your truck. I love that because construction and service business, you can run them very lean, right? What I mean by lean is that you're not spending a lot of money to run the business. You can run the business from your home in many cases. You can run the business from your truck. You can run the business from your garage, wherever, right? So your operating expenses, you want to keep that around 10 to 20%. And then your net income, the bottom line, right? So when people say the bottom line, they're actually kind of referring to an accounting term. Like the bottom line is the last, what does that mean? When we kind of know that as a figure of speech. Hey, what's the bottom line of what you're saying here? What are you getting at? That comes from a profit and loss statement. The bottom line refers to the last line on your profit and loss statement. And that's your net profit. That's your net income. And that's the money that you make as a business owner, right? And so this is where, if you're wanting industry standard percentages for the different areas of your business, these are what we shoot for as a goal for a healthy construction or service business. Okay. So, and your coach, Travis included this document in the chat. You guys can all get a copy of this. Your coach could also go over this with you if you want to put it under the burning fire section or the big questions or suggestions section of your agenda. So how do you increase your income and sales? Well, let's just review real quick some things you can do to positively impact each part of your profit and loss statement. So there's not a lot of ways to increase your income and sales other than increase your price. That immediately increases your income, right? Package services to sell more per transaction, cross-sell, upsell. For you service guys, that's like the home safety inspection checklist. Even for you like construction remodeling guys, you guys could develop a process where whenever you're doing the first walkthrough, one of my clients, Affordable Building, we put together this whole sheet where we mark what the customer wants to do, and then we mark like different possibilities of other things that they could do, right? But that's the other way to increase your income is you sell more per transaction, right? Higher average ticket totals. The next thing that you can do is you can increase your customers. If you increase your customers, you'll increase your top line, right? I want to say something real quick. We live in a culture where it's all about the top line, right? Like people talk about their top line revenue. I'm doing 1 million. I'm doing 5 million. I'm doing 10 million, right? I was in a strategy call earlier this week with a client, and this client was doing like $300,000 to $400,000 a month in top line revenue. Like that's a cool thing to tell people, right? But the not cool thing to tell people is like the same business is like operating at a 300,000 net loss for the year. So what I'm getting at is make your bottom line the most important thing. Because by making your bottom line the most important thing, that will inevitably increase your top line. Why? Because if you focus on making a more profitable business, you're going to be focused on making a more efficient, a more cost-effective, a more higher value, better delivery on your services type of business, which will then attract more customers, will attract more referrals. And whenever you get a new customer, it will gain customer loyalty for life, right? Focus on the bottom line. Don't focus on increasing your top line, right? Maybe your bottom line set and you're cruising, you're good. Then yeah, you can focus on increasing top line. But very common for people just to talk about top line revenue. What kind of money is your business doing? And that's meaningless. Who cares? All that matters is what is left over at the end of the day, right? Next thing we have here is cost of goods sold, variable expenses, right? So how do you positively impact that, right? So for your materials, keeping inventory low, this isn't necessarily recommended for everybody. Maybe you have a good management of your inventory, keep that up, right? Don't, but it's not uncommon for businesses to pay for more stuff than they actually use, right? So by doing more of a just-in-time inventory approach, you're only buying the products and materials that you need whenever you need it. That makes sure that you don't overspend on materials. There's also competitive bidding, right? So for David's situation, what I would do if I was in your situation, what I've done before is I just get on the phone, I start calling subs, right? I tell them what I've dealt with my other subs. Hey, my name's David. What's the name of your business again, David?
Bright Builder.
Hey, my name's David. I'm with Bright Builders. I'm a GC. Here's the kind of work that we do. I've been working with some subs. You know, they're not any good. They're inefficient. They charge too much. I'm looking for someone I can grow with long term. Curious if you can bid a project I have. Literally, all I do is I get on Google. I type in the type of sub I'm looking for. I typically don't call a person that has hundreds of reviews. I don't call a person that is obviously a residential service direct to customer focused brand. I call people that have a decent amount of reviews, but also I call people that doesn't look like they know what they're doing marketing wise. Because a lot of times those people are more inclined to work with GCs and be a good sub, right? So I call them, right? And I just get bids. I think Chris Anderson has one of the best stories of how to build a really strong sub network out there, because this dude just did that for years. In fact, he wouldn't just call people. He would like see people in the parking lot of Home Depot and he'd be like, hey, I'm looking for a good plumbing company. I saw that you have J&R Plumbing on your truck, on your van. I'm curious if we can work together, you know. Another thing here, I don't see a lot of people do this, but this is a real thing. Long-term exclusive commitments to vendors or supply houses. This will probably only work if your supply house is more local, or if you have some, you know, pre-existing special relationship, or if the supply house offers discounts to contractors. Maybe they have some standard practices. You know, hey, if I bring you $200,000 of business, would you give us a 10% discount? We know this as contractor pricing, right? So that's how you decrease your materials, your labor. So one way to really increase your gross profits is to move employee productivity from 1x to 2x. You know, this is something that I've had 2 members of our team at Redmond Growth come to me this week. Robert, we got to hire more people. Robert, we got to hire more people. And it's because we're like almost maxed out, right? We're really growing. But over this year, we've been able to really grow without hiring additional people. In fact, we had a young woman on our team leave because she was driving an hour one way to our office. And that commute was getting a little much. And instead of hiring to replace her, I was like, you know what? I want to see if we can still get the same output without paying for this person. And that's what we're doing. So I've been really focused on increasing our teams, on increasing our company's productivity. How do we continue to deliver the highest quality, most effective, badass service to our customers without hiring more people than we need? That's what I'm really focused on, right? If you as a business owner change your focus to efficiency on your jobs, tightly managing your team. So a rule that I have in Power Builders, I don't let my guys go to Home Depot. I don't let my guys in the field go to Home Depot, because when I did that, because I used to do that, somehow we would end up doing 2 to 3 Home Depot runs every day. And then when I took that employee card away and I said, hey, if you need materials, you got to let us know beforehand. I created pressure on the business to now we do maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 Home Depot runs a week, right? So focusing on employee productivity. That's a way to really increase your profits. Regular team training, regular team meetings, you got to do it. Team meetings are huge. Spoil your 2Xers by lavishing them with praise and rewards. The people on your team that are performing at twice the productivity, reward the hell out of them. Praise them, publicly praise them, recognize them. Right? What does that do? It doesn't matter if someone cops an attitude when you do that, like a lower performing person, if they're like, whatever. I promise you, no one is above this. When someone sees someone else on the team getting all these praise, rewards, being effective, other people want to then figure out a way to do that as well. There's even a study that was done on MBA students. Like, these are really smart business people, very accomplished business people. who thought like, who knew these techniques, who like knew or above it. Oh, you can't pit us against each other in competitive environments. You can, you measure their performance against each other, and that immediately creates this desire for all people to want to increase their performance. Right. And then always be hiring. That's what number 4 is. Always be hiring, hire high quality employees. Right. And then your operating expenses. We went over examples for there. Triple D, this is probably the biggest way to really positively impact your expenses. Who's done the triple D with our team? Who's familiar with this process? I know we're doing it with some of you right now. So it's looking at your expenses, and you're asking 3 questions. What can we delete? What can we delay? What can we dilute? Right? Delete, that's the obvious one. What expenses can we cut? Very common for people to sign up for some trial with some software or some service at some point in time and completely forget it's been running for 12 months. Right? That's what we're talking about, looking at your expenses. Dilute. What can we package? What can we get a discount on? What can we get a competitive bid on? Right? How can we maybe dilute the expense to where we get more for the same price? And then delay. What can we buy later? You know, one of the worst spending decisions that I made this year is I bought a trailer. And then I noticed that after we bought a trailer, and it wasn't a huge expense, it was like $3,000. But after we bought this trailer, the purpose of buying the trailer was so that we didn't have to do so many, we didn't have to spend as much on dump fees, right? That was our goal. Is like, okay, we'll get our own trailer and do the dumping on ourselves on some projects. Thing is, our dump fees didn't change. So now I'm changing so now I'm selling the trailer, right? Like we buy this thing, we should have bought it later. We should have delayed that expense. And then our favorite is to delegate. Make your employees cover your expenses in your business. Make them pay for everything. No, I'm just kidding. This is literally a joke one on here. I used to say this when we used to talk about this, is delegating your expenses to your employees.
We used to say this so much that and this was when I first started, that I thought it was true. Like, I was like, okay, I guess that's what we tell people.
That's a little bit of Redmond growth hazing.
And Robert was like, that's totally a joke. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay. Good to know.
You can't. your employees will quit really quickly if you try delegating your expenses to them. Hey, I actually want you out of your paycheck to pay for these materials.
We do have 3 people with their hands up.
Yeah, so I'm done. That's it. And I see people with their hands up. So Jason, your hand has been up the longest.
Yeah, I just had a question for Fred. When you give that 5% of the net, is that employee's salary? Is he hourly? Is he getting a salary on? He's not full commission on that, is he?
No, he's not full. He's salary, and then it's not full commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Fred, how did you come up with that 5%?
Just really pulled it out of I guess what I was comfortable giving away. Kind of pulled it out of thin air, I guess.
I love that, because that's exactly how you should be making decisions. Fred looked at his business, and he looked at what he was spending, and he looked at what he's making, and he said, what am I comfortable giving away? It doesn't sound like you were like basing it off of some industry standard. Yeah. So again, industry standards can be helpful. I'm not like here to knock an industry standard, but just be careful, because it really is, what's the standard for your business, for your own personal business? So Lance, what's up, buddy?
Sorry, I was still muted. No, I was going to say, I had a business mentor in the past that had explained to us when we were early in our business that there were other ways to pay people than with just money. And you were touching on that. And some of that's with, like you said, like paying them with praise, paying them with things like that, but also with your time. As the business owner, a good way to really just kind of take care of your guys. You could take a guy to lunch. You could, spend an hour on the phone with them one afternoon really while you're driving, and guys really, they receive, that's you're paying them. Essentially you're paying them with your time. You're paying them with just, touching base with them. And we're one of our guys, we've had a guy work with us for almost 7 years. And I tell you right now, we don't pay this guy well. Okay. But we've tried, but I know that in the times where times got lean, that, how I had to take care of him was with just spending time with him. And he really appreciates that. And so I'm not talking about gaslighting. I'm talking about, there's other ways to just be creative and take care of our guys. Cause you'd be surprised. Some of the guys that actually, really work for you probably care a lot more about your company and you and your family than just money. So.
Yeah, that's so good, so true.
I'll add to that too, in saying that the most impactful incentives that I've received were not monetary. Redmond Growth has 2 specific instances. One, they bought me a pair of Lululemon pants, which I would have never bought for myself, but they're so comfortable that I love, and I remember that it cost Redmond Growth next to nothing to be able to spend that for me. But I remember that,
dude,
and they
those
also bought me.
Lululemon pants were actually really expensive.
True.
I'll just give you a hard time.
But whenever I was training for the Ironman as well, Redmond Growth bought these bicycle tires for me to do that race, and that again costs Redmond Growth, maybe what a normal incentive is, but I'm gonna remember that for years. I wouldn't have remembered a dollar amount, in a month. That kind of stuff really sticks with employees for sure.
It's really good to know. We're gonna just be paying you with pants going forward. Now that you
That's
said
okay.
that.
I've got a full drawer. I'm all set.
Like, hey, dude, great 2 weeks worth of work. Here are 2 brand new pairs of pants.
It's like getting paid in gum on those extra commercials. Nobody pays me in gum.
Laura,
Yeah,
I see your hand up here. I don't know if you can unmute.
While Laura's unmuting, like another way to kind of do this concept that Lance has talked about here is actual benefits. It's like getting to a point where maybe certain members of your team, when they reach certain seniority levels, can get certain benefits that aren't super, costly for your business, but make a really big impact on the person. That can be like health insurance, for example. That can be like what we do at Redmond Growth is once you hit a certain client management level and you maintain that level for a certain period of time, we actually cover people's car payments. Up to, what is it, Nicole? Up to how much?
$450.
Yeah, $450 a month. Like Nicole's driving a brand new Subaru. Or I actually don't know what year it is. It just looks like a nice.
It's a 2025.
Oh, dang. I didn't even know that.
I know.
Okay, so Nicole just got a brand new Subaru. Before that, she had a Jeep,
2016 Jeep Wrangler.
which I drive a Jeep Gladiator, so I was very sad to see her Wrangler go. But that's something we've done for Nicole over the years. We've done for other team members over the years. It cost us $450 a month, but makes a really big impact on people personally. Laura, did you?
Hi,
it looks like
good morning.
Yeah, hi.
So I know we're running out of time. There was 2 things I wanted to touch on, so I'll let you decide what you think is the most valuable content to add. So when you were talking about buying your dump trailer, similarly with making the determination, do we want to buy the equipment or do we just want to rent it? So for those of us that do, trenching, or we are renting backhoes and dump trucks and things, it's like, well, you pass that cost on to your client. So whether you're buying the equipment or you're renting it, the idea, if you own it, then you're not making, a payment to the rental company once the equipment's paid for, but you still got to maintain it. You still got to register and insure it. So there's still costs. The other thing I was wanting to talk about is empowering a long-term employee to step up in a leadership role. Like, you can see they can do it, but they're not, like, they talk like they want to do it, but they're not taking the actual items to necessarily do it. So I'm struggling with how to empower them. And is it just lead by example, shoulder to shoulder with them initially, as they're stepping into that role, or do you just move on and try to hire somebody else?
So I have this kind of philosophy about firing people, which is, and I know you're not asking about firing people. Okay, I'm going to attach this to the question you're asking, which is no one should ever be surprised that they're being fired, even if they act surprised in the moment. Like, to give you an example, I've had to fire people, right? And I remember one time we had this person on our team who like was showing up late, which like I can manage someone who's showing up late and how to fix that. But there was a day where he was like really late, right? Like a couple hours late, like slept in way too long. And so, you know, I told this person they'd been late a number of times and this happened. I said, hey, we love having you part of this team, but if that happens again, we're going to have to let you go. Okay. Does that make sense? We're all clear here. Okay, good. Let's avoid that going forward. Then about 2 weeks later, it happened again. So then he came to office and I let him go. And he was like surprised. But I was like, dude, I literally told you if this happened again, I would let you go. And then he was like, you're right, you know. And so no one should be surprised by getting fired. Well, the reason why I'm saying that, Laura, is because the feedback needs to be super intentional, right? So if you're asking, hey, how do I help develop someone? Make it super intentional. What does that mean? Get them one-on-one and just talk directly and honestly to them. Talk to them about how you want to see them step up in leadership. Talk to them about the opportunities for their future, how you see their future at your company. Talk about the things that you see in their work performance that's affecting that, right? If someone's underperforming, pull them aside directly. Hey, you're underperforming in this specific area. We need to see an increased performance. And so with the, hey, how do I go about developing people? I default to making it super intentional. Be aware of avoidance, right? Be aware of wanting to avoid a one-on-one conversation, wanting to avoid addressing something that's really common. It's easier to avoid, right? It's easier not to say anything. It's easier to not develop someone, but people appreciate intentionality. And so I don't know if that's feedback's helpful, but that's, I would make it not so complex. There's not really like, hey, here's the best way, as much as it is like share your heart with people, but be really intentional about it. Jordan. Oh, you're muted, dude.
There you go. About offloading cost onto the employees.
Oh my gosh.
Like there are certain things though where it's like, where do you draw the line? Like in general, especially it's like, it's not with material obviously, but it's with like tools and things like that. So like,
okay, this is actually a legitimate question.
For things like, and it's kind of like I don't have like a rule for it, so it's kind of like a gray area, and it's like where do you draw the line? But for things like pull saws, wood bits, blades, things like that, for tools, for like what I would consider a consumable, you know, and it's like, or just things as simple as like bits for your drill, like it's things that don't seem like in the moment they're big dollar items, you know, but one, how do you apply that cost to a job? Because, you know, like that's one question. And two, like where do you draw the line at employee responsibility and business responsibility?
So it is normal to require and expect, depending upon the position, like basic hand tools that someone provides on their own, right? Now, it's also fairly normal for your business to have those tools as well. But in most of the hiring I've done with people, whether it's service or construction, on the job description under requirements, typically I've included, hey, basic electricians, hand tools required. Then when it comes to like the bigger, higher priced, unique stuff that someone may not have on their own. So an example of this, I'm not sure what an example might be for electrician, but example of this for a plumber would be like a camera, that you like run down a drain. Well, at the low end, those things are like $3,000, right? Most plumbers, unless they've been running their own truck for a while, probably won't have that on their own. So stuff that is more of almost along the lines of like an equipment side, I would purchase it. And then what I do is if there's a specific piece of equipment or a specific more unique tool that's needed for a particular project, I will charge the customer for it. That's just, how do I justify doing that? Hey, your job needs a more unique piece of equipment that we don't usually see on jobs. So I need you to buy it or pay for it, whatever. If you're going to be keeping it and using it on multiple jobs, like, maybe you could do a fee to the customer for the utilization of that, which maybe is around the same price of what it costs to maybe rent it, But I default to passing most stuff like that onto a customer.
And for like consumables, I've thought about doing like an allowance for that sort of stuff, because you can go crazy. Like I can make a blade on a saw last for a year, and then I'll have an employee that replaces one every job. Like how do you handle that stuff?
So I would just talk to the dude. Hey, you have to replace this every job. I usually have to replace this in a year. So I'm going to let you get one more this year, and then you have to buy your own. There's probably also an opportunity to maybe train this guy, right? Maybe genuinely he like doesn't know how wrong he's using it. Like sometimes you don't realize how much more that's just intuitive because you've been doing it for decades. Yeah. So creating a rule is just more important than not doing anything, regardless of what the rule is. Whether you say, hey, I'll give you one per job, one blade, whatever. Creating a rule that you think is reasonable is more important than just not doing anything.
So like, say on like a regular service call, would there always include like a miscellaneous line item, which basically covers in general, like $20 is a miscellaneous charge, and that's going to cover like screws, blades, bits, things like that, like stacked up over the month, That's
yeah. So on our easy estimating tool, that Google sheet that we developed, we have a miscellaneous line on there of 5%. Now I would maybe if you're going to use that as a line item in an actual estimate, I would maybe call that something else, right? So you could call it something like, like tool and equipment depreciation, or, something like that. You could even just make it part of materials. Just because if people see a miscellaneous expense line item, they instantly think it's unnecessary. It's like, this is for whatever. So I'd maybe have something specific, but yeah, that's fairly normal. Jordan, for electrician business, I would really think about what I would maybe not include that on every service item, unless you have stuff like that you need to pay for on every service call. Like on maybe your larger jobs, that would make more sense. But for like installing a fan, I don't know.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
Real quick.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Rose, you had your hand up earlier.
It's okay. I'll wait till the next conversation. I had a question about marking up materials. but I think it's going to be a longer conversation we have time for today.
Okay. That sounds good. David, you can close us out there, buddy.
Yes, just a quick question. I was looking at your, and I know this is a bigger question, but I was looking at preparing the cadence for your company. Can you just briefly touch on what your process is to go through and prepare in the preparation of the cadence? Because I feel like the process, that's like the key thing in anyone's business.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I love that you brought that up. We don't talk about the cadence enough. And it is so crucial to running a business that isn't so dependent upon you as an owner. So the first step in creating a cadence is determining what are the reoccurring activities in your business that you have to monitor week in and week out. What are the reoccurring activities? So examples of this: sales. There should always be a sales meeting in your cadence of some kind. There should also be an accounting or financial review meeting, right? Where you're looking at your job costing, you're looking on your progress on jobs. Team meeting, addressing issues in the team, addressing problems on project, addressing plans. So that's the first step. Determine the reoccurring most important activities in your business that you have to cover week in and week out. And it's, David, it's stuff you're already doing that you may not realize that you're already doing every single week. Bidding, you could set a cadence for times to actually bid projects. The next step is creating a calendar. So it's looking at your week. It's being realistic about what your week demands of you. And then you're determining when you're having these different meetings. I am really big on involving someone else in every important activity for the business that I can. Because if it's just me, despite being a business owner, despite, being a responsible person, whatever, if it's just me, things will get in the way of it. Unless I have another team member, another person, another third party, right? So like Redmond Growth serves a function like that for everyone. We are another person that holds people accountable to growing and their business and operating at their best as an owner. So I'm really big on setting up a structure where you intentionally bring in other people in to hold you accountable, to create an interdependency. Yeah, that's a good question. I'd really love to talk more about the cadence because it's so important.
Yeah, we can plan on doing that next week even more too. Kind of start with that.
Great questions, David. Great feedback today, everyone. Is there anything that I shared that doesn't make sense, or you're still like, I don't really know what to do next, especially on the commission question? Jason, do you feel good about it, or are you still?
Yeah, I mean, I got to work with Nicole, of course, but I've definitely got Shane's working on my numbers. We're getting together. I just, like you said, we got to look at our numbers first and see what we can afford at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, think about it almost in terms of the commission being like a way of purchasing something.
Right.
Right. You're purchasing your time. Maybe you're purchasing closing more deals. Just you do want to be careful about these things though, because once you set a compensation plan, taking that away is not a fun thing to do.
I've been there. Yep.
So it's better to start low and then work up someone higher. And just in general, for any new position, that's how you want to start anyway. Hey, you can make some serious money in this job. I'm open to increasing your commission. Here's how we're going to increase your commission. Once you successfully close 10 estimates, 20, whatever. you become more valuable to me. So I want to pay you more.
All right.
By the
think
way,
you-
before we all hop off, I just want to recognize Bob Stubblefield's background. He wins the background award for my favorite background ever. He's got an effing dragon sitting behind him. I don't know if anyone noticed that, but that's pretty cool. I like dragons. Yeah. All right, we can close.
Awesome. Okay, well, guys, really appreciate y'all participating today and being here. I'm going to have everybody unmute. We're going to do a big 3, 2, 1 growth. I'm seeing the microphones coming off. Okay, 3, 2, 1 growth.
Go!
Bye, guys. See you next week.
Have a great weekend, everyone.